Last week, I talked about an obviously fake piece of vandalism. It's a common thing going on where conservatives will try to be the martyr. They so desperately want to be the martyr. They so desperately want to be the victim. They so desperately want to believe that they are being attacked by liberals that they will vandalize their own property in order to get attention, in order to be the victim, in order to be that martyr, to get one step closer to what it was like for Jesus to give his life for the Lord. But what happens is they get found out, and that's what happened in this one. Trump supporter pleads guilty, graffitied his own home with Biden 2020 and BLM. Right? And if you look at these, it's so easy. I mentioned in the last week's post, it was one of the very few times they accurately depicted the anarchy symbol, right? And this one is an example of what they do generally, where they will have an capital A within a circle, which is not how you draw the anarchy symbol. For anybody who doodled as a child, the anarchy symbol was one of the most popular symbols to draw as a child on your note paper in class. And that is an A that every aspect of the A protrudes through the circle. But this is an example of so many of them, they will have this anarchy, what they think is an anarchy symbol. Actually, they don't even think of it as an anarchy symbol. They think of this as the A standing for Antifa, which is not. It's an anarchy symbol. Antifa separate, anarchy separate, BLM separate. They may have all similar types of, liberal views. Like they all kind of are different organizations fighting for similar types of change. In some ways, I mean, anarchy isn't really fighting for that. Anarchy in a lot of ways is more similar to like a libertarian view, right? But they love using it because they think they put the things that they think their enemies worship, because that's what their propaganda tells them liberals worship. So they think, oh, these liberals, they're going to come to my house. That's what they're thinking. It's like, what would a liberal who is evil, right? Marjorie Taylor Greene thinks liberals are killing conservatives, right? Spreading like disgusting, horrible lies in order for them to feel like victims, that they're not. Nobody's killing conservatives aside from other conservatives or maybe police, right? Because police kill a lot of people. So they think that we would paint Biden 2020 on somebody's garage. Doesn't make any sense. BLM, because it's part of it's another movement that is on the liberal side of things. Black Lives Matter, right? And then the A, which they think is Antifa, but is anarchy. So it doesn't really fit. People who are pro-anarchy aren't really voting. They're not really part of groups. Anarchy is very much opposed to a lot of that stuff, but they think it's Antifa, which is specific to police, or actually anti-fascism in general. I'm thinking of ACAB, Antifa, anti-fascism, which they don't get. They think Antifa is a thing. They don't understand that Antifa stands for anti-fascist, which they are. Fascists. Not kind of fascist like Biden said. They're hardcore, totally for fascism. In every category, if there's the checklist of things that are a fascist regime, they mark every box. They're for it in all of the ways. And this, similar to when the BLM protests happened after George Floyd's murder, global protests happened. there were a lot of fires, a lot of property damage. And what turned out to be the people responsible for a lot of that property damage during the Black Lives Matter protests was actually conservatives. It was a lot of right-wing groups who took advantage of a situation in order to cause damage, to make it seem like the protests were more violent than they were, to somehow justify the police brutality in response to what were primarily peaceful protests. But if somebody, right, let's just hypothetically step into a fantasy world where a liberal is angry and they're living next to a fascist right-wing neighbor who's probably racist also, right? I could see BLM maybe. I wouldn't necessarily. Like, seriously, if I was going to vandalize a fascist garage, I would paint swastikas on it. Because that is their symbol. That is the symbol that most represents their beliefs. But it's a symbol for a lot of them. Some of them embrace that symbol, but for a lot of them, don't, like, they're in denial of the fact that they align so much with the Nazi regime, right? But that would be one. SS, kind of not as well known, not as popular as the swastika, but having a twisted cross on there, that would be like the go-to. That would be the go-to if I were. But generally, what happens is people just don't care. They want to avoid, right? What happens on the other side, people, liberals that have signs up in their yards, like a rainbow flag or a BLM sign, like they post things on their own property. Usually what happens is conservatives get really angry and there's tons of videos of conservatives vandalizing. You never see a video of this stuff happening. It's always the aftermath. But there's tons of videos of angry fascists tearing down anything that is pro-inclusive. Like anything that's inclusive with the LGBTQ, inclusive with Black Lives Matter, inclusive with other religions. Any kind of inclusivity is demonized, attacked, and torn down by these fascists, these racists. It doesn't really go the other way, right? Because we just want to, like, live in harmony. We want to, like, live peacefully. We want people to kind of just live however they want. Just don't impose your hateful reality on us, right? If you want to be racist, I'm not going to change you, but I don't need you forcing your racism down my throat. If you're Christian, I'm not going to try and convince you that Christianity is a rebooted religion that stole all of their holidays from paganism. I'm not trying to convince you of the fraudulent nature of this made-up religion. I just don't want you shoving it down my throat. Right? Like, I'm not trying to change straight people into changing their preferences sexually. I just don't think their binary system of gender and sexuality should be applied to everybody. That's the issue. The issue is these fascists wanting to have everybody conform to their way of life and assuming that's what we want to do to them, which is the opposite. That's why so much of what they do is project. Everything's projecting, right? Grooming. That's literally what they do. They groom their kids to brainwash them into a religion. They groom their kids because they think that they can train them to not be gay. They don't accept the fact that there is an infinite amount of ways for a human to express themselves in this reality. They think it should be a binary. They want everything to fit into their fake system of structure. So anyway, every time one of these stories comes up, I want to do like a series of these fake vandalism things because there's a lot of similarities. And they're always bad quality, right? Like usually if somebody is going to go like most people that spray paint stuff are usually like artists, they have good technique. And then you look at stuff like this, like the B in Biden is like, it was clearly their first time using a spray can. Like they went over it a few times, right? The first one was probably a little shaky because they were nervous because they were vandalizing their own property. But there's a lot of similarities between these things. And none of them technically are any good. They're not very good at spray painting stuff.
New episodes of The Ray Taylor Show come out every single day. Subscribe on YouTube and everywhere our podcasts are found. Binge the full week over at inspireddisorder.com/plus. Buy Ray Taylor Show merch over at inspireddisorder.com. And follow the show on Instagram at Ray Taylor Show. Have a wonderful day, everybody. Peace out!
Today is the day where you wake up and you realize that everything that you've been dreaming about, everything that you've been wanting, every goal and wish and hope that you've ever had can become real. Dreams can come true. What you manifest in your mind, you can bring to reality.